The galaxy had known only peace for 4 millennia. Not an absence of conflict, but a deliberate, cultivated peace, negotiated, monitored, enforced. 1,000 sentient species, each with their own histories of violence and conquest, had come to understand that war was not profitable, not sustainable, and eventually, not necessary. The Galactic Empire was not born in fire, but in treaties, compromise, and cold logic. It became the backbone of civilization, a system of order so intricate and old that it seemed inevitable. It didn't rule through fear, but through inertia. In this vast structure of diplomatic machinery and technocratic governance, Earth entered quietly. Humanity was granted observer status late in the 3rd millennium. They brought no fleets, no demands, only ambassadors and cultural archives. Some in the core systems found their emotional volatility unsettling. Others found their creativity intoxicating. But no one found them threatening. Their biology was considered fragile. Their technology, competent, but unremarkable. Their politics were confusing, frequent internal disagreement, disjointed representation. Their military had not engaged in a true war in over 5 centuries. They were evaluated and categorized. Safe. Unlikely to disrupt. Lacking the temperament for galactic dominance. Still, humans were permitted seats on lower committees. They sent scientists, translators, biotechnicians. Their contributions were often unexpected, even ingenious, but always offered humbly. The Empire's Great Archive labeled them probationary members, useful, occasionally fascinating, but unlikely to shape history. The humans didn't contest the title. One detail stood out, buried in footnotes across hundreds of data streams. Humanity's last global war had ended in less than a decade, after killing tens of millions. But they had stopped it themselves, dismantled their own weapons, and never returned to open conflict. Other species took this as weakness. The analysts missed the distinction between peace imposed and peace chosen. Earth became known for quiet centers of learning, peaceful art colonies, deep space medicine. Their star system was rich in data, poor in strategic resources. No major trade lanes crossed their territory. Few outsiders visited. The humans didn't mind. They thrived in obscurity. Over the years, a subtle myth formed around them. Among minor civilizations and fringe xenologists, it was said the humans had done something no other species had managed. They had learned to forget war. Not suppress it. Forget it. There were records, certainly, wars of ages past, digital accounts of brutality, genocide, tactical genius. But these were seen as pathology, not pride. Their culture treated ancient war stories as warnings, not traditions. No monuments stood to celebrate military conquest. Their military academies trained peacekeepers. Their greatest national honors went to teachers, healers, architects. And so, when the humans sent 500 of their own, mostly women, mostly civilians, to a diplomatic station in orbit over Virex 3, no one questioned the gesture. It was typical, a goodwill mission, filled with language experts, cross-cultural specialists, environmental researchers. They were unarmed. Not because of oversight, but by policy. In 4,000 years, no unarmed diplomatic convoy had ever been attacked. The station itself was considered neutral ground, protected by ancient agreements stronger than treaties, conventions older than memory. Observers would later ask why the Empire didn't see the risk. Why it had grown blind to the power of symbols. But power breeds confidence, and confidence dulls memory. Humanity had not made demands. Humanity had not retaliated when ignored, or excluded, or insulted in subcommittees. They had not fought for prestige or rank. So when friction over a disputed research installation led to accusations, false ones, of espionage, there was no expectation of escalation. It was assumed the humans would withdraw, apologize, or at worst file a protest. No one remembered that even silence has a breaking point. In the heart of the galaxy, empires rise and fall on tides of belief. For 4,000 years, belief had rested on structure, hierarchy, and compliance. But belief is fragile. It does not withstand blood. And when blood was spilled, belief began to crack. What the humans were, no one really knew. What they would become, no one had dared imagine. Until that day. The transmission lasted 6 minutes. No warning. No delay. No translation lag. The Galactic Empire's official broadcast system, normally reserved for public addresses and interstellar resolutions, was hijacked. A sterile voice delivered the judgment. Earth was found in violation of Article 7.3.2 of the Unified Security Mandate. Charges: covert infiltration, cultural subversion, unauthorized data mapping. Evidence: not shown. Sentence: execution of the 500 human delegates stationed on Virex 3. Carried out immediately. The images that followed were raw, unedited, and broadcast in full spectrum. There were no armed guards visible. No trial. No words from the condemned. The camera showed a wide sterile chamber. 5 rows of unarmed humans, all seated. Silent. Behind them, Empire's security drones deployed weapon modules. A signal blinked. The weapons discharged in synchrony. The 500 fell in place. No resistance. No sound. No survivors. The feed ended with the Empire's seal. A final note. Compliance ensures peace. Within minutes, 1,000 systems went quiet. Diplomatic channels closed. Alliance forums overflowed, not with protests, but with polite silence. No race spoke in defense of the humans. No species challenged the decision. Fear paralyzed principle. Official imperial sources framed the act as necessary. Defensive. Preventive. The humans had been collecting linguistic data that could, hypothetically, compromise classified diplomatic patterns. The claim was absurd, but no one said so aloud. To question was to draw attention. To draw attention was to risk punishment. And so, the galaxy watched. And then, it looked away. Earth did not respond. No press release. No envoy. No declaration. For the first time in recorded galactic history, every human-operated relay station went dark within 24 hours. All interstellar transmissions from Sol ceased. Merchant fleets vanished from commercial lanes. Listening posts reported sudden blackouts in orbital AI beacons. The Empire interpreted this as retreat. As confirmation. The humans, they assumed, had accepted their punishment. Their silence was weakness. Their absence was surrender. Some considered the matter closed. Others, in quiet rooms, considered the possibility that the humans were simply too primitive to understand what had happened. Too broken by grief. Too slow to act. Only a few noticed the timeline. Only a few realized the precision. From execution to total withdrawal, exactly 24 hours. Not less. Not more. Not rushed. Not delayed. Across back channels, alien academics tried to frame the act. Cultural theorists debated possible human responses: diplomatic complaint, economic retaliation, perhaps isolationism. None proposed war. Not because they thought humans incapable of violence, but because the galaxy had forgotten what war looked like. It had been too long. The collective memory had eroded. And Earth had never shown its teeth. Among neutral races, the incident became a cautionary tale, quietly, and in private. Some debated whether the humans would vanish forever. Others hoped they would, fearing what might come if they didn't. The only official message received from humanity came not as words, but code. A short signal, pinged across 6 sectors simultaneously. 8 digits. No encryption. A timestamp. Galactic Standard, Year 4000. Cycle 99. Segment 12. The precise moment the executions had begun. It was not a threat. Not even a message. Just time. Yet in diplomatic strategy, timing reveals intention. And the intention was unmistakable. They had not forgotten. They had measured the moment. Empires speak in volumes, armadas, laws, broadcasts. But humanity answered with a pause. And it was that silence, not the blood, that began to terrify those who had watched. because they had expected anger. Instead, they found calculation. And calculation does not forget. 72 days passed. No word from Earth. No movement from human fleets. No response to inquiries, formal or informal. Trade liaisons found their access revoked. Human colonies on neutral worlds shut down ports, scrubbed data nodes, and ceased communication. Embassy buildings remained intact but unmanned. Artificial biosystems continued functioning. Lights remained on. But no human answered. The Galactic Empire interpreted it as fear. The humans, they concluded, had withdrawn to protect themselves. Diplomats categorized it as psychological retreat. Some minor species quietly followed suit, cutting ties in hopes of avoiding future entanglements. The incident, in the eyes of the Empire, was closed. Then a patrol convoy vanished near the Elan corridor. 6 ships, fully crewed, with standard escort. Last known ping showed normal drift. 4 hours later, nothing. No debris, no distress call, no black box beacon. The Empire launched a search grid across 30 light-years. No traces found. The case was marked anomalous disruption. A week later, a transport vessel carrying a high-level Imperial advisor reappeared, drifting off course. Engines cold, systems wiped. The crew missing. Not killed, removed. Uniforms left in position. Bloodless. Surgical. The ship's core logs were overwritten with one phrase, repeated thousands of times. Cycle 99. Segment 12. Privately, Imperial Command elevated its readiness level. Quiet mobilizations began. Surveillance on human territories increased. But no counteraction was taken. There was no clear target. Earth remained dark. Colonies remained sealed. Human space, once open and unguarded, was now a borderless void. Minor events escalated. Data architecture in 5 sectors collapsed without warning, markets crashed, NAV systems glitched, routing protocols defaulted to obsolete paths. Investigation traced the anomalies to old code libraries, standard issue modules, widely used, largely ignored. All had been co-developed with human engineers over the past century. The corrupted code executed perfectly for decades, until it didn't. Until someone, somewhere, flipped a silent switch. No declaration accompanied the disruptions. No manifesto, no demands. Just loss. At diplomatic summits, the issue was raised indirectly, coded language about post-incident recovery and restoring mutual transparency. Earth's representatives remained absent. The seats were left unfilled, untouched, as if waiting. Empire analysts constructed models. They predicted cyber retaliation, localized skirmishes, maybe economic sabotage. None predicted what came next. Within a single cycle, human black site satellites, once thought experimental, activated across deep space. Not in orbit, not on charts, but floating beyond known lanes. They began emitting low-frequency pulses that scrambled hyperspace, anchoring for Imperial ships, rendering thousands of routes inert. Travel became delayed. Couriers were stranded. Supply chains fractured. Still no contact. Still no face. Only effects. Alien observers began circulating restricted memos. The humans were not responding. They were operating. They had prepared for something. Not as a panicked reaction, but as a contingency long calculated. Speculation turned to fear. If this was preparation, what was the plan? One data analyst from the Archon Combine summarized it best. They are not attacking. They are removing variables. Humanity had not built larger fleets. Had not issued a counter-broadcast. Had not raised a single flag. They simply began erasing pieces of the galactic puzzle, quietly, efficiently, without acknowledgement. A pattern emerged. Every Empire-aligned outpost adjacent to former human routes went dark. Not destroyed. Not invaded. Disconnected. Every link severed with surgical precision. Every disappearance accompanied by the same timestamp. Cycle 99. Segment 12. What began as silence now read like choreography. Not chaos. Not rage. Sequence. The Empire still hadn't responded publicly. It couldn't. To acknowledge it would be to admit the first war in 4,000 years had begun. And they still couldn't see the enemy. Only their absence. And it was in that absence, methodical, total, unrelenting, that the galaxy finally understood. The humans were not coming. They were already here. The war began without announcement. No ultimatums, no banners, no mobilization. In a single coordinated hour, 12 Imperial Command planets went silent. Defense grids failed. Communication buoys transmitted only static. Surveillance satellites showed nothing. No signs of orbital assault. Ground sensors detected no landfall. But every primary administrative AI ceased function. Every senior official simply stopped transmitting. Backup chains failed to respond. Regional control splintered. Lower-tier governors attempted to stabilize communications, only to find their long-range systems corrupted. Couriers dispatched never arrived. Counter-intrusion protocols triggered internal system loops, rendering entire defense sectors blind. Empire Fleet Command deployed 3 full battle groups to the Sol boundary. None returned. The last signal received was a telemetry packet, basic, clean, silent. No request for aid. No distress tags. Just a complete log of a sudden gravitational spike. Then nothing. Tactical advisors debated response scenarios. Sabotage. Rogue insurgency. Internal defection. None considered Earth capable of acting on such a scale. Sol had been mapped, analyzed, scanned endlessly. Its defensive strength was average. Known fleet size minimal. Orbital infrastructure standard. Threat level negligible. That data was never updated. Within a week, 7 Empire Alliance species declared neutrality. Not in protest, out of fear. Entire planetary systems went dark, powered down, communications severed. Not as targets, none were attacked, but as shields, desperate to avoid being noticed. One neutral diplomat phrased it bluntly. To be seen is to be known. To be known is to be next. Ground-level reports filtered through forbidden channels. Fragments of testimony. Entire elite strike teams had been lost inside seemingly empty facilities. Human architecture defied conventional mapping, corridors rearranged themselves. Light frequencies shifted. Pulse weaponry failed. Augmented troops reported hallucinations. They saw images of Earth, forests, oceans, sky. Then darkness. Then nothing. No Empire counterattack succeeded. Entire planetary invasions met no resistance, just empty cities, powered systems, and automated defenses programmed to allow entry. Upon arrival, troops found no targets. Only silence. Days later, those same forces stopped reporting. Human machines never broadcast their victories. But every loss was marked. The timestamp. The same digits. Again and again. Cycle 99. Segment 12. Humanity didn't take territory. They didn't colonize. They didn't negotiate. They removed. Selective. Surgical. Permanent. Systems once vital to the Empire's logistics, refueling stations, AI cores, navigational relays, simply ceased to exist. The Empire's High Command initiated Protocol Black, a fail-safe doctrine never used before. Full fleet mobilization. All borders fortified. Entire outer sectors evacuated. Billions displaced. But the enemy did not come to them. The enemy was already within. Internal systems began to betray their users. Targeting algorithms refused lock-on. Hull integrity reports showed false positives. AI companions shut down mid-command. Emergency overrides failed. These systems had been built with human partnerships decades prior. No one remembered the source code. No one had thought to isolate it. The Empire had allowed integration. Now, that integration reversed. Empire warships launched retaliation strikes into empty coordinates. Orbital bombardments hit vacated facilities. Civilian populations, untouched by humanity, began to revolt, paralyzed by fear, not ideology. Every rebellion whispered the same phrase. Not spoken aloud, only passed hand to hand, screen to screen. Remember the 500. No ideology followed. No manifesto surfaced. No leader emerged. Humanity had no face, no voice, only action. Attempts to initiate peace failed. No transmissions were acknowledged. No envoys returned. It became clear the war was not being fought for victory. It was not conquest. It was remembrance. And remembrance was relentless. The empire didn't collapse in fire. It unraveled in silence. And wherever silence fell, the same timestamp appeared. Cycle 99. Segment 12. A decade passed. Maps changed. Borders vanished. The Galactic Empire still existed, but not as before. Its center no longer held power. Control fractured into isolated zones, each operating independently, afraid to reconnect. Coordination had become a liability. Any synchronized signal drew attention. And attention meant removal. Human-controlled space had no capital, no council, no official name. It simply expanded. Quietly. Efficiently. No announcements. No governing body. Just systems that stopped answering to the Empire and began aligning with Earth's standard protocols. Transitions were seamless. Infrastructure improved. Crime collapsed. Output rose. But no one claimed credit. No flags were raised. Travelers who entered these sectors noted the same pattern: silent order. Vessels were monitored but not intercepted. Supplies were taxed automatically. Exit was always permitted. No threats issued, no conditions set. But everyone left changed. No one returned to the Empire without recounting the same impression: this wasn't occupation. It was legacy. Attempts to re-engage diplomatically were ignored. The Empire broadcast apologies, reparations, formal acknowledgments. Silence answered. On the 10th anniversary of the Virex executions, a message finally appeared. It didn't come from a human. It didn't come from a planet. It was encoded into the magnetic field of a decommissioned Imperial beacon orbiting a dead world. The message contained one line: "We do not forget. We do not forgive. We do not stop." The signal carried no traceable origin. But within hours, 3 high-level Imperial black sites disappeared. Not attacked. Not bombed. Gone. Mass reduced to zero. Not even dust remained. Records showed no incoming fire. No system breaches. Just loss. The galaxy adapted. New trade routes were redrawn, deliberately avoiding human-influenced sectors. Entire academies began rewriting courses to exclude Earth from galactic political history, afraid that misrepresenting the narrative might trigger a correction. Children of non-human worlds whispered myths about the Silent Ones, humans as stories, not species. Occasionally, rumors spread of human medics arriving unannounced to epidemic zones, restoring order, then vanishing. Cargo freighters in distress were sometimes rescued by ships without flags or transmissions. Survivors were never harmed, only observed. Always the same impression: cold efficiency, followed by sudden absence. No gratitude accepted. No requests answered. Even in war, humanity remained unreachable. A theory emerged: the humans weren't continuing the war. The war had already ended. This was preservation. A self-sustaining pattern, fueled not by hatred but by principle. The act that began it, 500 women erased without cause, was not seen as a provocation. It was viewed as irreversible failure. One the galaxy had accepted. One humanity never would. No species joined their cause. None dared. But none opposed them either. Not anymore. Not after the last coalition attempt, an emergency alliance of 5 militarized systems, vanished before their declaration could be formally submitted. Their final message: initiating launch in T. Nothing followed. The timestamp appeared on their navnet nodes 12 seconds later. Cycle 99. Segment 12. It became ritual. A reminder. Not a countdown. Not a warning. A moment carved into the structure of time itself. Every AI loop, every beacon pulse, every memory array, rewritten to echo that single moment. The empire never rebuilt. Not fully. Pieces survived. But the system that once ruled billions now existed under quiet, self-imposed restraint. Not by law. Not by human demand. But by fear of misstep. Humanity spoke no further. They needed to say nothing. Their answer had already been written into systems stars' memory. They had not started the war. But they would never let it end.